Imagine being 7 months pregnant, working a grueling shift as a waitress, when the father of your child walks into your restaurant with another woman. Now imagine that woman is wearing a $10 million engagement ring, and the man you thought was your husband denies even knowing you exist. This is exactly what happened to Victoria Carter at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, the Diamond Room, on a night that would shatter everything she believed about her life. The man she knew as Dominic Carter, a gentle software developer who sang off-key in the shower and burned pancakes every Sunday, was actually Dominic Russo, one of New York's most dangerous crime bosses, laundering hundreds of millions in cartel money through fake tech companies. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Their entire marriage completely fabricated. The wedding ceremony she remembered, never legally filed. That woman on his arm, his actual wife of 3 years. And Victoria, according to official records, she didn't even exist as his mistress. She was about to be erased entirely. What happens next involves a detective who gets declared dead while still alive, a socialite with burn scars seeking revenge, and a chase through Manhattan that ends with FBI raids, attempted murder, and a choice no pregnant woman should ever have to make: save your baby or destroy the man who betrayed you. The most shocking part? Every major element of this story is based on sealed court documents from one of New York's biggest corruption cases. The names have been changed, but the FBI testimony is real. So if you're ready for a story that will make you question everything about love, betrayal, and how well you really know the person sleeping next to you, stay with me for the next hour. But I'm warning you, once you hear what Victoria discovers about her husband's double life, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. And look, if jaw-dropping true crime stories like this are your thing, hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise you've never heard anything like what's coming next. Share this with someone who thinks their ex was bad. Trust me, after hearing this, they'll feel a lot better about their own relationship disasters. The Diamond Room restaurant gleamed like a jewel box in Manhattan's Upper East Side, its crystal chandeliers casting prismatic rainbows across tables that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Victoria Carter pressed her hand against her lower back, trying to ease the constant ache that had become her companion these past 7 months. 28 weeks pregnant, the pregnancy app on her phone reminded her during her break. Your baby can now recognize voices and respond to music. She stared at herself in the employee bathroom mirror, adjusting the black serving uniform that barely concealed her swollen belly. The designer who created these uniforms clearly hadn't considered pregnancy as a possibility for the wait staff at New York's most exclusive restaurant. Then again, women like her weren't supposed to get pregnant and abandoned. They weren't supposed to fall from software executive to waitress in 6 short months. "Table 7 is here," Richard called through the door. Richard Brennan, the floor manager who ruled the Diamond Room with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. "VIP booth. They specifically requested our best server, though God knows why they'd want someone in your condition." Tori bit back her response. She needed this job desperately. The tips from one night at the Diamond Room could cover a week of groceries and prenatal vitamins. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford, not since Dominic had vanished from her life like smoke, leaving only divorce papers and an empty bank account where their joint savings had been. She smoothed her uniform one final time and pushed through the swinging doors into the main dining room. The transition always felt like stepping onto a stage. The kitchen's chaos and steam gave way to hushed elegance, where Wall Street titans and old money families performed their nightly rituals of conspicuous consumption. Table 7 sat in the VIP section, elevated slightly above the main floor, and partially concealed by imported Japanese screens that cost more than her former annual salary. She could make out 2 figures through the carved wooden lattice. The woman faced outward, her honey blonde hair catching the light like spun gold. Even from a distance, Tori could see the massive diamond on her left hand, the kind of stone that had its own insurance policy and possibly its own security detail. But as she approached with her practiced smile and leather-bound menu, it was the man that made her world tilt off its axis. He sat with his back partially turned, but she would recognize that profile anywhere. The sharp line of his jaw that she had traced with her fingers countless times. The dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. the spot where she used to press kisses while he worked late into the night, the broad shoulders that had once been her refuge from the world. Dominic, her Dominic, the man who had promised her forever and delivered only abandonment. The champagne bottle slipped from her nerveless fingers. The Dom Perignon, $1,000 bottle of perfection, exploded against the marble floor in a cascade of glass and foam. The sound echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot, bringing every conversation to an abrupt halt. Every eye in the diamond room turned toward the pregnant waitress standing frozen among the glittering shards. Dominic turned fully then, and their eyes met across the wreckage. The color drained from his face as if someone had opened a vein. His mouth formed her name, though no sound emerged. "You," Tori whispered, the word barely audible over the thundering of her heart. The blonde woman's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together in confusion, her red-painted lips pursing in displeasure. "Dominic, darling, do you know this woman?" He stood slowly, unfolding his 6'3" frame with the controlled grace of a predator. But his eyes, those dark eyes that had once looked at her with such love, had gone cold as Arctic water. "You must be mistaken," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent restaurant. "Please send another server." The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Tori's hand went instinctively to her belly where their child kicked in response to her spiking adrenaline. 7 months of wondering if he was dead, if he had been in an accident, if something terrible had happened to make him disappear without a word beyond a brief note about needing space. "Mistaken?" Her voice cracked on the word. 7 months, Dominic. 7 months of carrying your child alone. The blonde woman's gasp was theatrical in its perfection. She rose from her seat, her red Valentino dress clinging to every curve of her model-perfect figure. "What is she talking about, Dominic? Who is this person?" Richard materialized at Tori's elbow, his fingers digging into her arm with barely concealed panic. "I apologize for the disturbance, Mr. Russo. Elena will be leaving immediately." Russo, not Carter, not the name he had given her when they married in that small ceremony 2 years ago. Russo. "Kitchen, now," Richard hissed in her ear, already pulling her backward through the gathered crowd of gawkers. But Tori caught the way Dominic leaned toward the large man standing near the wall, the one she had assumed was just another diner, but now recognized as a bodyguard. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw the man nod and begin moving toward the exit with purposeful strides. The kitchen doors swung shut behind them, cutting off the whispers and stares from the dining room. Tori's hands shook as she untied her apron, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Dominic was here. Dominic was alive. Dominic had looked at her like she was a stranger. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Richard's voice was low and dangerous. That was Dominic Russo. The Dominic Russo. "I don't understand," Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tech billionaire by day, connected to every crime family from here to New Jersey by night. The FBI has been trying to pin something on him for years, but nothing sticks. He owns judges, prosecutors, probably half the police force. That's impossible. Dominic was a software developer. We met at a coffee shop. He wore off-the-rack suits and drove a Honda. Then you were played, sweetheart. Richard's expression softened slightly. "Look, I don't know what history you have with him, but you need to disappear. Tonight, take the back exit. Don't go home. Just run." "I need this job, Richard. The baby. We'll need a mother who's alive." He pressed $200 into her hand. "That's all the cash I have on me. There's a bus station 6 blocks east. Get on the first bus out of the city." Tori grabbed her purse and coat from her locker, her mind racing. None of this made sense. The man she had married was quinoan, gentle, normal. He brought her flowers from the bodega on the corner, not diamond necklaces. He cooked elaborate Sunday dinners and sang off-key in the shower. He was not a crime boss named Russo. The parking garage felt cavernous and threatening in a way it never had before. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every sound echoed with menace. Her ancient Honda Civic sat alone in the employees section, looking pathetic and vulnerable under the harsh fluorescent lights. She had just fumbled her keys from her purse when a voice made her freeze. $2 million. Tori spun around to find the blonde woman from the restaurant standing beside a black Bentley. Up close, she was even more stunning. flawless skin that had never known a blemish, cheekbones that could cut glass, the kind of beauty that required a team of professionals to maintain. Excuse me? $2 million to disappear tonight. The woman examined her manicured nails with casual indifference. Cash, untraceable, in your account within the hour. All you have to do is leave New York and never contact Dominic again. You're trying to buy me off? I'm offering you freedom. The woman's smile was sharp as a scalpel. Do you have any idea what loving Dominic Russo actually means? The FBI surveillance, the rival families who would love to use you as leverage, the constant fear that today might be the day someone decides to send him a message written in your blood? Tori's hand went protectively to her belly. He's my husband. The blonde woman's laugh echoed off the concrete walls. No, sweetie, Dominic Russo has never been married. I should know. I've been engaged to him for 3 years. She held up her left hand, the enormous diamond catching the light. Isabella Sterling, soon to be Isabella Russo. Our families have been planning this union since we were teenagers. That's impossible. We got married. I have the certificate. A forgery, I'm sure. Men like Dominic have appetites, and sometimes they create elaborate stories to satisfy them. Isabella's eyes dropped to Tori's belly with undisguised disgust. Though I must admit, he usually has better taste. The insult stung, but not as much as the doubt creeping into Tori's mind. The mysterious business trips Dominic took, always vague about details. The calls he received at odd hours, speaking in hushed tones in what she now realized might have been code. The way he sometimes looked over his shoulder even in their own apartment, as if expecting an attack. 2 million, Isabella repeated, enough to raise that bastard somewhere safe, somewhere far from our world. Consider it a generous severance package for services rendered. Before Tori could respond, her car made a clicking sound, then another, then nothing. The engine wouldn't turn over. The battery that had been fine this morning was suddenly mysteriously dead. Car trouble? Isabella asked with mock concern. How unfortunate. My driver could take you home, give you time to think about my offer. You have until midnight to decide. The Blacktown car glided through Manhattan streets, while Tori sat rigid in the back seat, her mind spinning. The driver hadn't spoken a word, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the night hour. Isabella had remained at the restaurant, presumably to comfort her fiancé after his encounter with his pregnant mistress. Mistress. The word tasted bitter in Tori's mouth. She had been a wife, or thought she had been. They had exchanged vows in front of witnesses. She had worn white. He had cried when she walked down the aisle. How could all of that have been a lie? The car pulled up outside her building in Washington Heights, a far cry from the luxury of the Diamond Rooms neighborhood. The driver finally spoke, his accent distinctly Eastern European. Miss Sterling says you have until midnight. Choose wisely. Tori climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, each step heavier than the last. The baby seemed restless, kicking and turning as if sensing her distress. She was fumbling for her keys when she noticed the door was already open, the wood frame splintered where someone had forced entry. Her living room looked like a tornado had struck. Furniture overturned, cushions slashed open with surgical precision, books scattered across the floor like dead birds. The kitchen was worse, every dish shattered, the refrigerator emptied onto the linoleum. But it was the nursery that broke her. Someone had destroyed everything with methodical cruelty. The crib she had bought secondhand and spent weeks painting lay in pieces. The mobile of stars and moons she had made by hand was twisted into unrecognizable metal. And across the soft yellow walls she had painted herself, someone had spray painted in blood-red letters, "Leave NYC or lose the baby." The ultrasound photos she had treasured, the only images of her son, were torn to confetti and scattered like ashes across the carpet. She fell to her knees among the destruction, sobs tearing from her throat. Everything she had built, everything she had prepared for her child's arrival, destroyed in minutes. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Hello? Her voice was raw from crying. You should have taken Isabella's offer. The voice was Dominic's, but cold and unrecognizable. This is your only warning, Victoria. Leave tonight or I cannot guarantee your safety. Dom, please. This is our child. Your son. I have no son. Each word was ice. You were a mistake, a temporary lapse in judgment. Take the money and disappear, or next time, it won't be paint on your walls. You don't mean that. The man I married, the man you married never existed. He was a fiction, a role I played when I was bored. You were entertainment, Victoria, a pretty distraction who got too complicated. The line went dead. Tori sat among the ruins of her nursery, phone still pressed to her ear, unable to process the cruelty in his voice. 7 months of wondering why he left, of defending him to her sister Emma, who called him a bastard for abandoning her. 7 months of believing there must have been a reason, that their love had been real. A knock at the door made her jump. Through the peephole, she saw a familiar face that made her weak with relief. Marcus Bradley, her sister Emma's husband, Detective Marcus Bradley, with his kind eyes and steady presence. Tori, thank God! He took in the destruction with a cop's trained eye, his expression hardening. Emma sent me when you didn't answer your phone. She's been worried sick. Marcus, I need to leave the city, tonight. Already arranged. He pulled out his phone, showing her a flight confirmation. Emma's waiting at JFK. You'll stay with her in Chicago until we sort this out. While Tori threw essentials into a suitcase, Marcus made calls. She heard him mention safe house, witness protection, federal case. The words washed over her like white noise. Nothing felt real anymore. Russo did this? Marcus asked, though it wasn't really a question. You know him? Every cop in New York knows Dominic Russo. We just can't prove anything. He paused, studying her with those intelligent eyes. You really didn't know who he was? He told me his name was Dominic Carter, said he was a software developer. Marcus's expression was grim. Tori, I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt. They sat in Marcus's unmarked police car outside her destroyed apartment while he pulled up files on his tablet. The first was a photograph from some society event. Dominic in a tuxedo, Isabella Sterling on his arm, both smiling for the cameras. The caption read, Tech mogul Dominic Russo and fiancée Isabella Sterling at the museum gala, raising funds for children's cancer research. The date was 3 years ago, a year before Tori had met him. There's more, Marcus said gently. He pulled up a marriage certificate. Dominic Russo and Isabella Sterling, married in a private ceremony in the Hamptons. This was filed last year, 6 months before you say you married him. That's impossible. We got married. There were witnesses. My sister was there. Emma was at a ceremony, Marcus corrected, but no marriage certificate was ever filed for Victoria Carter and Dominic Carter. We checked. Thoroughly. The world tilted. Tori gripped the door handle, fighting the waves of nausea that had nothing to do with pregnancy. He played you, Tori. Created an entire identity, a whole life, just to have an affair. And when you got pregnant, he dropped the act. But why? Why go to such lengths? Marcus shrugged. Men like Russo, they get bored. They have everything, so they create challenges for themselves. You were a game to him. They drove toward JFK in silence, Tori staring out at the city lights blurring past. Everything she had believed about the last 2 years was crumbling. Every memory was now tainted with lies. At the airport, Marcus walked her to security, his hand protective on her elbow. She had just placed her bag on the conveyor when 2 TSA agents approached. Victoria Carter, please come with us. Marcus stepped forward, badge raised. She's with me, NYPD. Not anymore, detective. A man in a dark suit appeared, FBI credentials in hand. Miss Carter is on a federal no-fly list. She's a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. That's impossible, Marcus protested. She's a victim here. That's to be determined. The FBI agent's smile was cold. Miss Carter, you'll need to come with us for questioning. She's 8 months pregnant, Marcus said, moving protectively in front of Tori. She needs medical care, not interrogation. 7 months, Tori corrected automatically, then winced as another agent appeared behind them. Detective Bradley, check your phone, the first agent said. Marcus looked at his screen and paled. They suspended me? That's impossible. I haven't even filed my report about tonight. The Russo family has connections you can't imagine, the agent said. Your sister-in-law stays in New York. Those are the orders from very high up. Higher than you want to challenge. In the parking garage, Marcus slammed his fist against his car. This is bigger than I thought. Dominic Russo isn't just mob-connected, Tori. He's been laundering cartel money through his tech company, hundreds of millions flowing through apps that look like games and productivity tools. How do you know this? I've been investigating him for 2 years, off the books, because every time someone tries to make it official, they end up transferred, suspended, or worse. He met her eyes. Tori, in the eyes of the law, you were never his wife. You're just a mistress who got pregnant and might know too much. That makes you either a witness or an accomplice. The pain hit without warning, radiating from her back around to her belly. Tori doubled over, gasping. "Hospital!" Marcus commanded. "Now!" The emergency room at Presbyterian hospitals smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Tori gripped the bed rails as another contraction rolled through her body. The monitors beeped frantically as nurses rushed in and out, their faces professionally calm but their movements urgent. "Braxton Hicks," the doctor announced after an examination that left Tori feeling exposed and vulnerable. "False labor brought on by severe stress. The baby is fine, but your blood pressure is dangerously high. We're admitting you for observation." They moved her to a private room on the maternity ward. Marcus stood guard outside her door, but Tori couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every nurse who entered could be on Russo's payroll. Every sound in the hallway could herald danger. Her phone buzzed with a video message. Isabella's perfect face filled the screen, but now she was sitting in what looked like Tori's destroyed apartment. "Since you declined my generous offer, let me be clear." The camera panned to show Marcus's car in the hospital parking garage. "Your protector can't even protect himself. You have 6 hours to reconsider. $2 million and a new life, or no life at all. Choose wisely." Tori tried to call Marcus, but he didn't answer. She pressed the nurse call button. No response. The monitors had gone silent. Even the hallway sounds had faded to nothing. The door opened slowly. A man in scrubs entered, but his eyes were wrong. Too focused, too cold. He moved with the controlled grace of someone trained in violence. "Not medicine. Just something to help you sleep," he said, producing a syringe from his pocket. His accent was Russian, thick and menacing. Tori's hand found the IV pole, and she swung it with all the strength her pregnancy-weakened body could muster. It connected with his temple with a satisfying crack, sending him stumbling backward. She ran barefoot down the empty hallway, her hospital gown flapping open in the back, looking for anyone who could help. The elevator doors were closing when she heard shouts behind her. She jabbed the parking garage button repeatedly, praying the old elevator would move faster. When the doors opened, she ran toward Marcus's car, visible under the fluorescent lights. She found him slumped in the driver's seat, blood trickling from a wound on his temple. Still breathing, but unconscious. His gun was gone, his phone missing. "Marcus, wake up, please." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Tori, they came from nowhere. 3 men, professional. We have to go." "Can't, too dizzy, might have concussion." He pressed his car keys into her hand, then pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "Safe house, address, don't trust anyone else." Tori helped him into the passenger seat, her pregnant body protesting every movement. She hadn't driven in months, not since selling her car to pay for baby supplies. The engine started on the first try, and she pulled out of the garage as black SUVs screeched into the entrance behind them. The chase through Manhattan tested every ounce of her concentration. She ran red lights, mounted sidewalks, used taxicabs as moving shields. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness beside her, occasionally mumbling directions. The SUVs stayed close, relentless in their pursuit. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, she pulled into a narrow alley in Queens. The safe house was a nondescript brick building, squeezed between a laundromat and a bodega that had seen better days. Marcus mumbled the door code, and they stumbled inside. "You're safe now," he said, then collapsed completely. The television droned in the corner of the safe house, while Tori held a cold compress to Marcus's head. He had been unconscious for an hour, his breathing shallow but steady. She had found a first aid kit and done her best to clean the wound, but he needed real medical attention. The morning news broke through her worried thoughts. Breaking news from Queens. Detective Marcus Bradley of the NYPD was found dead in an apparent suicide. his service weapon beside him. Detective Bradley had recently been suspended pending investigation into corruption charges involving the Russo crime family. Sources say he had been taking bribes for years to look the other way. In a tragic turn, a pregnant woman believed to be his mistress also died in an apartment fire in the same building. Their bodies were discovered early this morning. The compress fell from Tori's numb fingers. She looked at Marcus breathing on the couch, then back at the screen where they showed his photograph with death dates listed below. "No," she whispered. Marcus stirred, his eyes focusing on the television. The blood drained from his face as he saw his own obituary. "They're erasing me," he said, his voice rough, "making it impossible for me to help you. If I'm officially dead, nothing I say or do matters anymore." A phone she didn't recognize rang in Marcus's jacket. She answered with trembling hands, already knowing who it would be. "Hello, Victoria." Dominic's voice was silk over steel. "By now you understand the reach I have. Your protector is dead to the world. Your accounts are frozen. Your identity is being systematically erased. You have 1 hour to surrender yourself to my people." "Why are you doing this?" "Because Isabella demands it, and Isabella gets what she wants. The man I married would never be. The man you married never existed," Dominic cut her off. "He was a fiction I created to amuse myself. You were entertainment, Victoria. A pretty distraction who got too complicated. I'm carrying your child." "Prove it." His voice was cold. "Prove that baby is mine. You have no marriage certificate, no proof we were ever together. For all anyone knows, you're just a delusional woman who became obsessed with a public figure." The cruelty of it took her breath away. He had erased not just their marriage, but any evidence of their relationship. She thought of the photos on her phone, but when she checked, they were gone. Her cloud storage had been wiped. Every digital trace of their life together had vanished. "I know the truth," she said. "Truth is what money says it is," Dominic replied. "And I have unlimited funds to rewrite reality." The line went dead. Marcus struggled to sit up, his face gray with pain. "We need to move. If they've declared me dead, this safe house is compromised." As if on cue, smoke began seeping under the door, not enough to kill immediately, just enough to force them out. They stumbled through the back gated into an alley where Isabella stood beside a black town car, examining her phone with casual indifference. "The building's on fire," she said without looking up. "Such a tragedy. Detective Bradley died trying to save a pregnant woman from the flames. Heroic, really. They'll probably give him a posthumous commendation." "You're insane," Tori gasped, the smoke making her eyes water. Isabella's eyes finally met hers, and Tori saw something broken behind the perfect facade. "Insane? No, I'm a survivor." She lifted her hair to reveal terrible burn scars covering the left side of her neck, usually hidden by makeup and strategic styling. 5 years ago, I was engaged to Dominic, until rivals planted a car bomb meant for him. I was supposed to meet him that morning, but he was late. His driver died instantly. I survived, barely. She let her hair fall back into place. 3 years of surgeries to look normal again. 2 years planning my return, and then you appeared, the sweet little nobody who made him feel normal. Do you know what it's like to lose your face, your life, your future, only to watch the man responsible fall for someone else? Dominic didn't plant that bomb, Tori said, though she wasn't sure why she was defending him. No, but his world did, his choices, his enemies. Isabella's smile was sharp as winter. So now I'm taking everything from him, starting with you. The question is whether you die as his mistress or disappear as a stranger. Marcus stepped forward, and Isabella's bodyguard raised a gun. Despite being officially dead and severely concussed, Marcus had managed to keep his backup weapon, hidden in an ankle holster. The tension in the alley was electric. "Ah, the dead detective. How inconvenient that you're still breathing." Isabella seemed more amused than concerned. "No matter, we can arrange a more permanent death." The sound of sirens made everyone freeze. Not police sirens, but federal ones. The distinctive wail of FBI vehicles surrounded the block, getting closer by the second. Isabella's composure cracked for the first time. "Inside," she commanded her bodyguard. "Now." They were herded back into the burning building, smoke thickening by the second. Up the narrow stairs to the third floor where the air was clearer, But the heat was building. Isabella produced a phone, typing rapidly. "Change of plans," she announced. "Dominic wants to play hero? Let him try." She held the phone to Tori's face, starting a video call. Dominic's face appeared on the screen, his expression shifting from cold control to something raw when he saw Tori's terrified eyes and the smoke beginning to fill the frame. "Let her go, Isabella. You took everything from me," Isabella said, turning the camera to herself. "My face, my life, my future. Now I'm returning the favor." "The FBI is outside," Dominic said carefully. "This is over." "Over?" Isabella laughed, the sound unhinged. "It's just beginning. You see, I know about the real books, the ones showing every dollar laundered, every politician bought, every murder ordered. Marcus here was kind enough to gather all that evidence before his tragic death." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "Everything needed to destroy not just you, but every family in New York. Unless what? You choose. Save your pregnant mistress, an unborn bastard, or save your empire. You can't have both. The FBI gets this drive, or they find her body. Your choice, Rabam." The smoke was getting thicker. Tori's eyes streamed as she struggled to breathe. The baby kicked frantically, responding to her distress and the lack of oxygen. "There's no choice," Dominic said quietly. "Let her go." "Wrong answer." Isabella ended the call and turned to her bodyguard. "Kill the detective. We only need her alive for now." The gunshot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space, but it was Isabella's bodyguard who fell, clutching his shoulder. Marcus stood behind him, his backup weapon smoking. "Not dead yet," Marcus growled, though the effort of standing and shooting had clearly cost him. Isabella pulled her own gun, smaller, elegant, deadly. "Then let me fix that." The window exploded inward. Tactical teams swarmed through, their shouts filling the air. "Chauffeur, weapons down, everyone on the ground now." Isabella's gun swung toward Tori and time slowed to heartbeats. Marcus threw himself forward. Dominic appeared in the doorway. Isabella pulled the trigger. The bullet meant for Tori caught Marcus in the chest. He fell backward, blood spreading across his shirt. Isabella turned the gun on herself, but Dominic was already moving, knocking it from her hand with brutal efficiency. "No," he said coldly. "Prison. You'll rot in prison." As FBI agents restrained Isabella, Dominic dropped to his knees beside Tori, where she pressed her hands against Marcus's wound, trying desperately to stop the bleeding. "Hospital," she begged. "Please." Marcus gripped her hand weakly. "Evidence. Hidden. Under Emma's maiden name. Everything you need." His eyes fluttered. "Tell Emma. Tell her I loved her. Tell her about the baby." "What baby?" "She's pregnant. Found out yesterday. Was going to surprise me." He coughed, blood speckling his lips. "Protect them." "Promise, Wu." "I promise," Tori sobbed. Marcus smiled slightly, then went still. The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan buzzed with media attention 3 weeks after the fire. Every major news outlet had sent reporters to cover what they called the trial of the century, the case that would expose corruption reaching from street-level criminals to the highest offices in New York. Tori sat in the witness waiting room, her belly huge at 8 months pregnant. The baby had been restless all morning, as if sensing the importance of the day. She pressed her hand against a particularly strong kick, whispering soothing words to her unborn son. Dominic entered without knocking, and her traitorous heart still skipped despite everything. He looked older, worn down by weeks of FBI interrogations and frozen assets. The empire he had built over decades was crumbling, but somehow he seemed lighter for it. "You don't have to testify," he said quietly. Isabella confessed to everything. Marcus's murder, the attempted murder, the conspiracy. She'll never see daylight again. "I'm not testifying about Isabella." Tori met his eyes steadily. "I'm testifying about you." Something flickered across his face. Pain, perhaps, or acceptance. "The immunity deal," she continued. "You tell them everything about the money laundering, the cartels, the corrupt officials. In exchange, witness protection for both of us." "Both? I'm still legally your wife, remember? You forgot to fake the divorce papers along with the marriage certificate." She managed a bitter smile. The FBI found our real marriage certificate, the one from Vegas 3 years ago. Dominic's composure finally cracked completely. You knew? Marcus found it before he died. You married me twice, Dom. Once for real when we were drunk in Vegas, which you apparently forgot about or chose to hide. Once with the fake ceremony 2 years ago, when you were playing at being someone else. I didn't forget. His voice was rough with emotion. I thought if I gave you a fake life, a fake marriage, I could keep the real one from destroying you. Instead, you nearly got me killed. I know. He moved closer, not touching, just near enough that she could smell his cologne. The same one that still clung to his shirts she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Every choice I made was wrong. Every lie I told made it worse. The door opened. A federal prosecutor entered with a stack of documents. Mrs. Russo, Mr. Russo, we're ready for your joint testimony. The use of her legal name still startled Tori. Mrs. Russo, she had been Mrs. Russo for 3 years without knowing it. She stood carefully, one hand supporting her belly. Dominic reached to help her, then stopped, uncertain. She saw the question in his eyes, the desperate hope he was trying to hide. We testify, she said. We disappear into witness protection, and then we figure out if anything between us was ever real. It was real, he said urgently. The coffee shop, the bookstore dates, the Sunday mornings. Every moment I was just Dom was real. But Dom doesn't exist. He does. He's all that's left. Dominic's hand hovered near hers, not quite touching. Strip away the money, the power, the crime, and he's all I ever really was. Just a man who fell in love with a woman who saw him, not his name. Tori placed his hand on her belly. The baby kicked immediately, strong and sure, as if recognizing his father's touch. Your son, she said simply. Whatever else was lies, he's real. Dominic's eyes filled with tears she'd never seen him shed, not even at their fake wedding. What's his name? Marcus Daniel Russo. She watched him process that, honoring both the man who died protecting them and the man Dominic claimed to truly be underneath all the lies. Tori, we should go, the prosecutor interrupted. The grand jury is waiting. They walked together into the courtroom, not touching but connected by invisible threads of shared history and uncertain future. The media erupted when they entered together, shouting questions about the scandal that had exposed corruption, reaching to the highest levels of New York society. Tori testified for 3 hours, detailing everything from their meeting to the attempts on her life. She spoke about Marcus's sacrifice, about Isabella's revenge, about the web of lies and violence that had nearly destroyed her. Dominic sat silent throughout, his face a mask of controlled emotion, except when she described finding their nursery destroyed. Then something broke in his expression, a raw pain that made him look human for the first time since she'd seen him at the restaurant. When it was his turn, Dominic gave them everything. Names, dates, amounts, methods. He exposed 3 decades of criminal enterprise, implicating dozens of powerful figures. With each revelation, another piece of his empire crumbled. But he never hesitated. Wow, the prosecutor asked finally. Why give up everything? Dominic looked at Tori, then at her belly where their son grew. Because some things matter more than power. Because I want my son to have choices I never had. Because the woman I love deserves better than a life built on blood and lies. The witness protection orientation took place in a bland federal building in Maryland. New identities, new histories, new lives constructed from government-issued fiction. Tori learned she would be Sarah Walker, relocated to Portland with a background in accounting. Dominic would be David Walker, her husband, a freelance programmer with a clean past and modest ambitions. The baby will be born under your new identities, the marshal explained, sliding documents across the table. No connection to your past lives. As far as the world knows, Dominic Russo and Victoria Carter died in a murder-suicide, another tragic end to a sordid affair. Together, Tori asked, glancing at Dominic. We're being relocated together? You're legally married. The program keeps families together unless specifically requested otherwise. The marshal looked between them carefully. Is that a problem? Dominic remained silent, leaving the choice to her. Tori thought about raising their son alone, about Dominic disappearing again, this time forever. Despite everything, the thought created a hollow ache in her chest. No, she said quietly. No problem. They flew to Portland in a government plane, their old lives literally disappearing beneath clouds. Dominic sat across from her, reading through their new histories with the focus that had once built a criminal empire. You were born in Ohio, he said. High school sweethearts, married young. At least that part's true, Tori replied, thinking of Vegas and the Elvis impersonator who had forgotten half the ceremony words. Sarah. He tested the name. It doesn't suit you. David's pretty generic too. Perfect for disappearing. He looked out the window at endless farmland passing below. I never wanted this for you. Which part? The pregnant alone, the death threats, or the witness protection? Any of it. All of it. He met her eyes. I thought I could have both worlds. Keep you in the light while I operated in the dark. But darkness spreads, doesn't it? Yes, she agreed, it does. The house in Portland was aggressively normal. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a yard with a wooden fence that needed painting. Suburban anonymity at its finest. Dominic carried their few possessions inside while Tori explored rooms that smelled of fresh paint and new carpet. The nursery was already set up with basic furniture, courtesy of the Marshalls. A crib, a changing table, a rocking chair. Nothing like the beautiful nursery she had created in New York, but safe. Safe was all that mattered now. It's perfect, Dominic said from the doorway, though they both knew he was lying. A contraction hit without warning, dropping Tori to her knees. Warm fluid soaked through her dress, putting on the new carpet. The baby, she gasped. He's coming. Dominic had her in the car in seconds, his old command returning as he called the Marshal liaison. Then the hospital, speaking in the calm, controlled voice that had once ordered murders. The contractions came faster, harder. 6 weeks early was dangerous, but not impossible. Hold on, Dominic said, running red lights with the confidence of someone who'd spent years above the law. Just hold on. I'm scared, she admitted, gripping his hand hard enough to leave marks. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed back, ever again. The hospital was ready when they arrived. Nurses whisked her to delivery while Dominic filled out paperwork with their new names. David and Sarah Walker, expecting their first child. The lies that would become their truth. Labor lasted 12 hours. Dominic never left her side, coaching her through each contraction, being the partner he should have been all along. When Marcus Daniel Walker finally arrived, screaming and perfect and whole, they both cried. He's beautiful, Dominic whispered, cradling his son for the first time. He looks like you. He has your stubborn chin, Tori countered weakly, exhausted but unable to look away from the tiny perfect face of their child. And your nose, Dominic added, touching the baby's face with one gentle finger. Thank God for that. The Marshal arrived the next morning with final paperwork and warnings. Any contact with their old lives would void the protection agreement. They were David and Sarah Walker now, permanently. One exception, the Marshal said, producing a sealed envelope. This came through official channels, from Detective Bradley's widow. Emma's letter was short but devastating. Tori, I know you're alive. Marcus told me everything before he died. He loved you like a sister. He wanted you safe. I'm pregnant too. Marcus never knew. Our child will never know their father, but maybe someday, when it's safe, they can know their cousin. Please be happy. Please make it count. For all of us who can't. Emma, Tori sobbed into Dominic's shoulder while baby Marcus slept in his hospital bassinet, oblivious to the grief surrounding his arrival. Another child who would grow up without a father. Another casualty of the world Dominic had built and destroyed. 1 year passed in Portland. Marcus learned to roll, to crawl, to pull himself up on furniture with determination that reminded Tori of his namesake. His first word was mama, his second dada, and his third, inexplicably, was despite them not having one. Dominic proved surprisingly adept at suburban fatherhood. He approached it with the same intensity he'd once applied to crime, reading every parenting book, baby-proofing obsessively, researching the best developmental toys with the focus of someone planning a heist. They fell into rhythms that felt both foreign and familiar. Morning coffee while Marcus played in his bouncer. Evening walks around the neighborhood with the baby in a stroller. Grocery shopping on Saturdays at the local farmer's market where no one knew their names or cared about their past, but they slept in separate rooms. Polite strangers raising a child together, bound by law and necessity, but not by love, or at least not acknowledged love. One night when Marcus was 10 months old and finally sleeping through the night, Tori found Dominic in the nursery, speaking softly to their sleeping son. "I promise you'll never be like me," he was saying. "You'll be honest and good and brave like your mother, like the man you're named for. You'll have choices I never had. You'll never have to lie about who you are or what you do. You'll never have blood on your hands." "You had choices," Tori said from the doorway. Dominic didn't startle. He'd known she was there. He always knew where she was in the house, a habit from his old life that would probably never fade. "Did I? My father put a gun in my hand when I was 14, said, 'This is your inheritance, your birthright.' Every choice after that was just damage control." "And Isabella? Was she damage control?" "Isabella was arrangement and ambition, a merger between families disguised as an engagement." He touched Marcus's tiny hand, and the baby gripped his finger even in sleep. "You were the only choice I ever made just for me. Both times you married me, especially Vegas. 3 years ago, before I knew I'd need to hide you. That was just us, drunk on possibility and cheap champagne." Tori entered the room fully, drawn despite herself. "Tell me about Vegas, the real story." Dominic smiled, a rare genuine expression that transformed his face. "Tech convention. I was establishing the legitimate side of the business, making connections. You were there for your friend's bachelorette party." "We met at the poker table," Tori remembered suddenly, the memory hitting her like a physical blow. "You were losing badly. You were wearing that blue dress, the one with tiny stars on it." His voice had gone soft with memory. "You told me I had terrible poker face for someone in my line of work. You said you were in waste management." "Technically true, I managed human waste." His attempt at humor fell flat, but she appreciated the effort. "We talked until sunrise, about books, movies, traveling the world, everything except who we really were." "Then the chapel," Tori continued, pulled into the memory despite herself. "That Elvis impersonator who kept forgetting the words. You laughed so hard you cried, said it was perfect because nothing about us made sense anyway." He looked down at their son. "When I got back to New York, I had the marriage sealed, buried in legal documents. Told myself it was to protect you. Really, I think I was protecting it, keeping one pure thing separate from everything else." "Then why the second wedding?" "Because I wanted to marry you properly, when you thought you knew who I was, when you could choose the man, not the name." He laughed bitterly. "Instead, you chose a fiction." "No," Tori said firmly. "I chose the man who brought me tea when I was sick, who read Pride and Prejudice because I loved it, who sang off-key in the shower and burned pancakes every Sunday. That was you, wasn't it? The real you?" "The only real me," he admitted. They stood together over their son's crib, separated by inches that felt like miles. Outside, Portland rain began to fall, pattering against the windows like tiny fingers tapping. "I love you," Tori said suddenly, the words surprising them both. "Not who you were, not who you pretended to be. You, here, now, David Walker, who makes terrible coffee and coaches Little League and loves his son." Dominic's hands gripped the crib rail so tightly his knuckles went white. "You can't mean that." "I do. I hate it, but I do. I've tried not to. God knows I've tried. But watching you with Marcus, seeing you learn to be normal, to be good." She trailed off, unable to finish. "Tori." Her name was a prayer on his lips. "I'm pregnant," she said, the words tumbling out. 6 weeks. I was going to wait, but it seems appropriate. New life, new chances." He crossed the nursery in 2 strides, pulling her into the first real kiss they'd shared since that night at the Diamond Room. It tasted like rain and redemption, and possibly forever. "We're really doing this?" he asked against her lips. "The normal life thing?" "Nothing about us has ever been normal," Tori laughed, and it felt like breathing again after a year of holding her breath. "But maybe ordinary is enough." Marcus chose that moment to wake, babbling happily at seeing both parents. They each picked him up from different sides, holding him between them, a bridge connecting their past to their future. 5 years passed. Portland became home in ways New York never had been. Marcus grew into a thoughtful, serious child who loved books and soccer in equal measure. His sister Emma arrived exactly 9 months after that night in the nursery, a force of nature who had her father wrapped around her tiny finger from the moment she was born. They were the Walkers. David did freelance programming and coached Little League. Sarah did the books for local businesses and ran the PTA bake sales. Their children went to public school and had play dates and complained about vegetables. On quiet nights, Tori sometimes forgot they had ever been anyone else. But reminders came in unexpected ways. A car backfiring sent Dominic reaching for weapons he no longer carried. Tori still counted exits in every room, a habit that would probably never fade. They both went still whenever sirens passed, waiting to see if they would stop. The package arrived on Marcus's 6th birthday, no return address, but the marshals had cleared it. Inside was a USB drive and a note in elegant handwriting. For the children, every monster deserves a chance at redemption, even from beyond the grave. Isabella had died in prison 2 years earlier, shanked by someone with old grievances, the report said, but apparently she had made provisions. $50 million, Dominic said quietly after checking the account. Blood money. They stood in their ordinary kitchen in their ordinary house, staring at enough money to change everything. We don't need it, Tori said. No, Dominic agreed, we don't. They donated it anonymously to a fund for children who had lost parents to violence. The Marcus Bradley Memorial Fund, though no one but them would ever know the significance of the name. That night, after the children were asleep and the dishes were done, they sat on their back porch watching the stars that Portland's clear skies occasionally allowed. Do you ever regret it? Tori asked. The normal life? I regret everything that came before it, Dominic replied, pulling her close. But this? Never. Even the minivan? The minivan was your idea. It's practical. It's hideous. The kids love it. The kids have terrible taste. Like their mother. She elbowed him gently, and he laughed, the sound still rare enough to be precious. I love you, he said suddenly. Sarah, Tori, whoever you are today and tomorrow. I love you. I know, she replied. David, Dominic, whoever you are. I know. 10 years after that night at the Diamond Room, they renewed their vows in their backyard. Their children were the witnesses, Marcus, serious and proud, Emma bouncing with excitement. They used their real names in whispers only each other could hear, promises made with full truth between them for the first time. The Mafia boss who had brought his fiancée to dinner was gone. So was the pregnant waitress who dropped the champagne. In their place stood two people who had walked through fire and chosen to build something beautiful from the ashes. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, but it was theirs, earned with blood and tears and sacrifice. And in the end, that made it worth more than all the money and power in the world. Sometimes redemption comes not from grand gestures, but from small daily choices. The choice to make breakfast, to coach soccer, to help with homework, to love when love seems impossible. David and Sarah Walker made those choices every day. And slowly, year by year, they stopped being choices and became simply who they were. The family who had risen from the ruins. Ordinary, unremarkable, and absolutely perfect in their imperfection.